Welcome to SVG-TV News for Friday, 28 September 2018. I'm Yvette Boynes with the details. An earthquake was felt in St. Vincent and the Grenadines this morning. Preliminary information from the Seismic Research Center of the University of the West Indies indicates that a 5.6 magnitude quake occurred at 8:32 a.m. today. Its center was located at latitude 15.11 degrees north, longitude 60.43 degrees west, at a depth of 10 kilometers east-southeast of Roseau, Dominica, and northeast of Castries, St. Lucia. The National Emergency Management Organization says there are no reports of damage from this earthquake. NEMO's director, Michelle Forbes, is however appealing to residents to be aware of the linkage between earthquakes and tsunamis.
In the event that you feel an earthquake, we always ask persons to do what we call the DCH, to drop, cover, and hold on. Basically, to drop and cover your head and protect your head from any falling object in and around where you may be. That is if you're in a building or you're in an enclosed space. But if you're outside, then you move away from any tall buildings into an open space where nothing can fall on you. Also, to note that if you feel a strong earthquake that is close to us, and persons always have the concern of a possible tsunami. If you have earthquakes that are very close to us that generate tsunami, it is very unlikely that you will probably get a tsunami warning because of the time that it will take for the waves to get here and the time that it will take to analyze the information. So persons must know the warning signs. If you feel a very strong earthquake and you think in your mind that it may generate a tsunami, you have to go to higher.
Earlier this week, Director of the University of the West Indies Seismic Research Center, Dr. Richard Robertson, said that the region is experiencing an increase in earthquakes and persons need to stay alert and be prepared in the event of a high-magnitude earthquake. The local Coast Guard service is searching for a missing vessel with two fishermen, Anthony Chad Ballantyne and Mason Anthony Duck Cruikshank, on board. In a release issued today, the Police Public Relations Office says that at about 9:55 a.m. on Wednesday, 26 September, the SVG Coast Guard Service received a report of a missing or overdue vessel, the Good, the Bad, the Ugly, which left Canouan at about 4:45 a.m. with two persons and a quantity of fish on board. Up to 10 a.m. on Thursday, 27 September, the SVG Coast Guard said there was no sighting or reports of the vessel having made landfall, and as a result, a search and rescue operation was launched. The search is being assisted by the SVG Fisheries Trawler Blackjack with Mr. Eli Slater and a party of men to the north of Beckway. Maritime authorities in Trinidad and Martinique, as well as the regional security system, the Barbados Coast Guard and the Coast Guard Service in Grenada have all been alerted about the missing men. The Good, the Bad, the Ugly is a 25-foot red and blue vessel with a 75 horsepower engine. Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves has called for non-interference by some countries in the affairs of small island states. The Prime Minister made this call yesterday as he addressed the 73rd session of the UN General Assembly in New York. Dr. Gonsalves also represented the case of Venezuela, Cuba, and Taiwan on state matters, saying the position taken on these countries is having an effect on other Caribbean countries. Larissa Pugs the Kid has more in this report.
Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves said small islands are under assault by some countries as they continue to interfere in their domestic affairs. And he stressed the need for larger states to desist from doing so since this infringes on their independence.
We owe our existence as nation states to a global recognition and respect for the principle that no other nation, large or small, rich or poor, near or far, should be allowed to interfere in our sovereign affairs or interfere in matters properly resident in our domestic jurisdiction. Without strict adherence to these tenets, small states' existence dangles precariously on the threads of great power intrigue or changing perceptions of our strategic significance.
Dr. Gonsalves said Venezuela has been feeling the brunt of attacks by the United States and other countries, and this has negatively impacted the region. He made specific reference to the Petro-Caribbean agreement which Venezuela has with several Caribbean countries.
The democratically elected government has been subjected to an unacceptable, coordinated, intense external economic assault, which has had to, indirectly, a debilitating effect on small Caribbean nations which have had generous arrangements of solidarity, for example, through the Petro-Caribbean agreements. To be sure, Venezuela has enormous internal socio-political challenges, but unwarranted illegal intervention is certainly counterproductive to the people's ongoing quest for peace, democracy, and liberty. Venezuela needs a peace and reconciliation mission, not a campaign of sanctions, subversion, and threats of armed intervention.
Dr. Gonsalves also called on the United States to re-engage with Cuba, pointing out that this country stands in solidarity with Cuba with respect to the U.S. blockade.
The anachronistic economic blockade of Cuba is both illegal and unproductive. The time has long since passed for its complete repeal. We regret deeply that the fledgling rapprochement between the United States and Cuba has stalled, and we call for a resumption of mutually respectful dialogue between our two friends.
Dr. Gonsalves made a pitch for Taiwan, saying that the UN should not stop Taiwan from becoming a member.
The United Nations, which justly counts among its member states populations as small as 10,000 people, somehow continues to remain blind to the 23 million residents of Taiwan. There is simply no principled basis to deny Taiwan the right to participate in the work of the specialized agencies of the United Nations.
The Prime Minister also addressed the issue of climate change, noting that access to funding remains a problem. He added that countries must do more to deal with this problem, which must be a priority.
Madam President, the rising seas and intensifying storms pose an existential threat to the small island developing states particularly. Major emitters that fail to set and honor ambitious mitigation pledges are committing a direct act of hostility against the SIDS, and we ought to resist the recklessness of those major emitters who are acting against our interests. In the same vein, the financing of climate resilience and adaptation measures by our development partners cannot be shoehorned in the same glacially slow, labyrinthine bureaucratic processes that have stymied other cooperation initiatives.
Dr. Gonsalves outlined several initiatives taken by SVG to deal with climate change, but said that the country needs financial help to execute its plans.
St. Vincent and the Grenadines is also making increasingly innovative forays into capitalizing on the vast potential of the blue economy, tourism, niche agricultural products, and our historical knowledge in the medical cannabis industry. We seek the cooperation of our friends and partners in supporting these initiatives.
The Prime Minister is heading a 4-member delegation to the General Assembly. Reporting for SVG-TV News, I am Larissa Pugsley-Kidd.
St. Vincent and the Grenadines is no longer under a tropical storm watch. The watch for Tropical Storm Kirk was lifted around 11 this morning as the main portion of the system had passed over the islands. The National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, says while several areas were inundated and one family was transferred to a shelter, there was no damage. Larissa Pugsley has more.
Tropical Storm Kirk passed over SVG last night and into this morning, leaving some areas filled with pockets of water. So says Director of NEMO, Michelle Forbes, in an interview with SVG-TV News. She says that while Kingstown was not inundated, some areas that are prone to flooding, such as Sandy Bay, were affected to an extent, but there has been no damage. There were only small twigs on the roadways and a few banana plants that could not withstand the winds. She says one family from Sandy Bay was placed in a shelter.
Because the waters were pretty high and the waves were already threatening their homes. So we have 3 families at the shelter in Sandy Bay. And they will probably continue there until this evening, until the seas have subsided. Their homes are not damaged, but it's just a precaution, to ensure that they are safe and, save lives. We have not had any reports around the country on any major flooding or any other issues apart from the usual flooding in the northern part of the island in Sandy Bay. The dry guts in Noel and those rivers would have come down. So apart from that, things have been pretty quiet.
Tropical Storm Kirk no longer poses a threat to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and both the Tropical Storm Watch and the Flood Watch have been discontinued. Forbes says that Vincentians prepared well for the storm as they heeded the call made by NEMO and the Met Office to take precautions.
We have been monitoring the system for over a week, and I think because we have had those communities that have had the experience with flooding in particular before and storm surge, we are finding more persons actually taking the warning a bit more seriously. Still some work to do, but I think most persons are listening and actually taking the information and taking action when they actually receive the information, and if they start to see any signs of any increased activity in and around their surroundings.
Liat also resumed flights this morning after some cancellations yesterday. Later this evening, northerly swells generated by post-tropical cyclone Leslie are forecast to propagate southwards across these shores. Reporting for SVG-TV News, I am Larissa Pogsley.
Families must be placed at the center of any early identification and intervention programs for children with developmental delays. So says the Chief Education Officer, Beverly Neptune, as she made remarks at the beginning of a consultation between representatives of UNICEF and the Ministry of Education. UNICEF provided training to members of the Ministry of Education in 2015 to identify developmental delays in children with disabilities and to implement various screening methods. Today's consultation served as a forum to discuss the findings. Neptune said early detection of developmental delays and disabilities in children is crucial if they are to live productive lives. She said screening and intervention programs must have the involvement of parents.
They are the consistent eyes, the ears, the voices. I was told that they are the children's first teachers. And when the child has a developmental delay, even when they are at the point of denial, believe me, they get to the place of acceptance and they still remain the experts. Early identification and intervention programs or systems must focus on providing resources for parents and families. When parents understand the child's delay or the child's disability, their involvement and the resources given to them make them better equipped to manage a lot of the difficult behaviors, and they have the tools to work on strengthening some of the skills, the new skills that the children may get at school. And that's why they must be the center of what we do in our programs.
UNICEF Early Childhood Specialist Shelly and Harper said while early detection for developmental delays and disabilities is important, so too is ensuring the developmental needs of the child. She said a wide cross-section of stakeholders, including members of civil society, must work towards this end.
Child has a disability, however. The earlier this is diagnosed, it's the better for the child. We know that it's important for us to be able to identify if a child is having some kind of challenge, but then, we can't just identify and then leave it there. we have to look to see what does this child need to support its development, what assistance, and who is going to provide this assistance. And this is where we all have a part to play, whether it's UNICEF as a developmental partner, whether it's your government, it's NGO, civil society, parents, teachers, healthcare workers. We all have a role to play in ensuring that all children, and we will give some special attention to children with a disability or delay, because again, they need some extra support. But we've got to work together to do it.
Harper said the participation of the educator at the consultation is critical for the improvement of detection and intervention systems.
What are the gaps in terms of intervention? Where is it that we need to improve the system to support this child? And then what are some of the things that together we can do which will strengthen the systems for services, for early identification, early intervention, and of course, the long-term goal is that child is able to learn and develop to their potential with the relevant support. And so your role in this consultancy is critical. During the course of the week, Dr. Sams Vaughan would have been meeting with various persons. We've had several focus groups. And now we are here to also hear from you, because we need you to help us together. We've got to look at the system and see how we can improve. And so again, I thank you for coming.
Medical laboratories support a host of other health services, and as such, medical labs in SVG and from 6 other OECS countries are engaged in a training project aimed at creating accreditation and standardization for labs operating in the sub-region. The project is funded by the OECS Global Fund and executed by the Caribbean Medical Lab Foundation. The target is to ready laboratories for the first phase of accreditation in December. Lab and Quality Systems Specialist and Facilitator of the project, Wendy Kitson-Piggott, said the project is timely and can improve the quality of services provided.
Importance is that at the end of the day, patients need lab testing supports, in fact, many things. It supports clinical care and treatment. It supports public health, surveillance, information. It supports policy development. And so part of the whole lab effort, and it involves the chief medical officers, the permanent secretaries, etc. We actually just had a meeting of chief medical officers and permanent secretaries in driving forward the implementation of national laboratory policy across the region, and certainly within the OECS in particular, and regulation of laboratories. Long in coming, okay? But hopefully we now just at the point when this is going to happen. Okay.
Chief Lab Technician at the Milton Cater Memorial Hospital, Elliot Samuel, said the primary role of laboratories is to provide data used in clinical analysis and by policymakers. He said the information must be accurate, and he is confident the project will assist in this regard.
The outcome is really to have labs accredited, and accreditation really translates into having data, information that is accurate, reliable, and that is delivered in a timely manner. Information in the sense that the product of the lab, a lot of people when they think lab or when they hear lab, they tend to be in a little gray area as to what it is that the lab is providing, and we have been known over the years to be a point of testing, and we're trying to move away from that paradigm. The laboratory is really a point of information, and that's our product. The information is really used to guide clinical diagnosis and management and care of patients, as well as to provide information for public health intervention and for ministers of government to make decisions relating to healthcare. This information, because of what the information is used for, it has to be accurate, it has to be reliable, it has to be timely. And our quality management systems actually allow for the management of that information, ensuring that the information is meeting all of the tenets of a quality system.